Once again, it's time for another breakdown of the most important, intriguing, and inspiring updates from the space industry. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, welcome back. And if you're new here, we're thrilled to have you because this week, we have some incredible updates to share. There are amazing developments surrounding the Starship project as always, but Crew Dragon has some jaw-dropping updates as well. We have stunning new images to review and an unusual Vulcan launch that left everyone wondering, what on earth happened there? This video is sponsored by Novium, a company creating innovative hover pens inspired by space to stimulate curiosity and creativity. Hi, Marcus House here. And this week at Starbase started with Ship 30 being destacked from Booster 12. Many of you asked in the comments last week if they still needed to do a full wet dress rehearsal, but after the partial tanking test last week, it seems SpaceX gathered all the data they needed. There were signs of a ship and booster destack on Monday after the hot stage ring load spreader was moved from the production site to the launch site. By Monday afternoon, Ship 30 was back on its transport stand, and shortly after, Booster 12's hot staging ring was also removed. Once the ship was destacked, SpaceX immediately began close inspections, with one worker even peeking inside the ship's vent from a manlift. They continued to tinker inside the payload bay area for most of the week, as they currently have plenty of time. A beautiful high-resolution shot we captured on Wednesday clearly shows the relative size of the towering structure. It's always fascinating to see humans for scale. Booster 12, as expected, showed no signs of being moved, and its transport stand was shifted to the Sanchez site overnight, allowing SpaceX crews to resume work on the tower arms and conduct small actuation tests. Over at Pad B, crews were busy working on the new flame trench. From recent aerial footage, the difference from last week was evident. SpaceX had already dug out a large area at the far end of the flame trench, including a separate channel off to the side, which we believe will house the commodity lines for loading and water deluge systems. The digging is now deep enough to reveal the recently installed piles. We're still in the early phases of this construction, but new clues are emerging weekly about the pad's future look. Nearby, the new tower is progressing well. Now that a lot of integration work between sections is complete, the safety catching nets have started to come down, indicating that work near the top of the tower is largely finished. With rapid progress on all fronts, we might soon see the drawworks installed to drive the pulley system for the arms. Interestingly, a testing jig for the original set of arms was moved to the pad on Thursday. Remember when they tested the arms with giant water sacks back in January 2022? It looks like it's time for those sack tests again. On Friday, the jig was hooked up and lifted onto the arms to simulate the weight of a booster once caught, likely with plenty of safety margin. Notice how much the arms sag under the weight. The tests wrapped up as evening set in. Meanwhile, a week ago, the crane used for stacking the tower appeared to be reconfigured for additional work. However, on Wednesday, it was lowered back down, and parts of the jib and hook were removed later that evening. They were spotted lifting containers previously used to store crane sections. Either a more radical reconfiguration is in progress, or the crane is being packed away to move off-site. At the entrance of the launch site, new rebar for foundation work is visible, likely related to extending the tank farm to support additional mass. The site has been a continuously evolving landscape throughout the year. Tower 2 work continues at the production site as well. The arms have received similar reinforcements to those applied to Tower 1's arms. Scaffolding supports workers, and the carriage that clings to the tower will be raised and lowered by the pulley system. A new 4-point lifter system was delivered this week. These lifters are designed for Block 2 ships, which have 2 separate lift points on each arm instead of just one, providing better stability and control during lifting. More massive hardware has been moving around, with Booster 14 appearing out of Mega Bay 1. We believe this one is likely the flight article for Flight 7, but it's not certain yet. There were hints of this rollout as the booster transport stand was seen waiting outside Mega Bay before eventually being rolled in. After being lifted onto the transport stand and having the load spreader moved away, the massive structure was fully revealed. Though it currently lacks grid fins, SpaceX's focus on the aerodynamic chins was evident. The crew worked through the night on those. As of now, Booster 14 has been transported to the Massey's test site, along with a ship thrust test stand. I'm expecting initial cryogenic tests to verify structural integrity before final installations, like grid fins. By morning, we could see the stainless steel giant at Massey's next to test Tank 16. Over at the Sanchez site, work on the second orbital launch mount has been progressing well. The steel frames that form the mount sides were spotted last week, and another frame along with corner pieces arrived this week. Some impressive shots show these sections being lifted into the assembly area. Further north in Texas, one of NASA spaceflight's cameras at McGregor captured a Raptor firing for a full 897 seconds. It's hard to imagine a scenario requiring a burn of nearly 15 minutes, so this may have been purely a test to see how long the engine can run. Of course, it might have also been an attempt to set a record for the longest Raptor firing yet. There was also excitement, as a notice to mariners hinted, at a potential Flight 5, with operations targeting October 12th at Boca Chica and backup dates until the 17th. If true, this would be 6 weeks earlier than the FAA's previous estimate. Right after that, their original estimate had not changed. What did all this mean? Who knows, but there is obvious intent to at least plan for a flight. There is so much speculation around this. Could SpaceX be attempting to go for a Flight 4-style mission without a catch to get faster approval? Could there be pressure on the FAA to make this happen behind closed doors? Is it possible that NASA themselves are getting involved in the approvals? Interestingly, the more breaking news is that a Mexican airspace NOTAM was released on Friday, now for October 13th, but this time handed out by the FAA? Certainly, there are some weird contradictions going on here, but this doesn't prove anything. It could just be old information or one hand not talking to the other. Interestingly, the danger zone in red is slightly larger near the launch pad in this data, which would add evidence that a catch attempt is still on the cards. Well, all this remains to be seen, but things are certainly heating up. The Starship project is a constant roller coaster as we approach the next big flight test. I think what really draws people in is that it represents the greatest step toward us becoming a permanently spacefaring species. Lunar bases, commercial industry, Mars exploration? It's not just about the largest rocket ever created. It's about the possibility of transforming the future. That's why we love it, right? Thanks for being here, all you wonderful subscribers who love it along with me. In fact, if you want to chat with us and even check out almost daily posts and images being taken by Sean, or perhaps even request some views that you want to see the next day he is out on his next adventure, we have a closed group on Discord available to all of you generously supporting the content as patrons and YouTube members. Come and visit us to be a part of Starship Recon. We'd love to chat with you. So we've had some super fun launch activity. Of course, just hours after publishing last week's video, we had the beautiful Crew 9 mission kicking off. What it was most notable about the launch itself was that this was SpaceX's first crew mission from Space Launch Complex 40. They had been working on this intensively for about 2 years, upgrading it for crewed missions. That includes loads of safety upgrades, along with the obvious new crew tower. Add start. More on that in a second, but first, check out Novium's hoverpens, the sponsor of today's video. Hoverpen Interstellar was made to add a neat little talking point to your desk, hovering at a precise 23.5-degree angle. The same angle the Earth is tilted to give us those magical seasons of the year. It's beautifully and perfectly balanced, using magnets to float there, making it a neat thing to fidget with while you're deep in thought. It comes in a bunch of great colors. Space black like this one right here, Mars magma, starlight silver, and Neptune blue. Keep in mind, all their pens are refillable, so you'll have them for the long haul. And if you're after something even more special, this meteorite edition includes an embedded meteorite shard in the tip. I double-checked. And the meteorite they use is estimated to be over 4.5 billion years old, so you're literally holding a piece of ancient space history right there. A friend of mine, who loves writing in the calligraphy style, typically using a fountain pen, picked up Novium's HoverPen Future, which has an interchangeable fountain tip that can be switched out with a typical rollerball tip whenever you want. Again, they are refillable too, so there are a bunch of great options here. Whether you're looking for an original gift for someone special or just want to treat yourself, these pens are perfect for any desk setting. They also come beautifully packaged, and using my link, you can pick up an added 10% discount with free shipping when you use the code MarcusHouse. Just head there from the QR code right there on screen or from the link in the description below. Thank you, Novium. Ad end. So yes, this first Crew 9 mission was indeed historic. With SLC-40 now officially crew-rated, the Falcon 9 along with the Crew Dragon Freedom was standing there ready to fly. Remember, for this one we only had 2 crew members loaded up on this mission, which allows ex-Starliner crew Butch and Suni to take the remaining 2 places for this mission. Sadly, the other 2 crew members, Xena Cardman, who was originally going to be the commander, along with Stephanie Wilson, needed to be bumped from this mission. I'm sure they'll get another chance, but it was incredibly disappointing for them, especially for Xena, who would have been taking her first ever trip to space. I'm sure that one was a heartbreaking post to write a little over a month ago, and she helped make this entire event the inspiration that it was, as she was helping host with NASA right through the count. It would have been super emotional watching her mission fly away, but she did a great job on the stream. Anyway, with the commander role taken by Nick Hague, who was on his second mission after being part of Expedition 59 in 2019, we then had first-time cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, who held the mission specialist position. This left Nick also taking on many of the pilot responsibilities as well, with assistance from his crewmate. 3.5 hours before liftoff, they were suited up and ready to go. They hopped into their sleek Teslas with custom nameplates and made the short drive to the newly upgraded SLC-40. Stepping out and taking one last look at the incredible machine that would carry them into space, they hit that to space button to climb up to the crew access arm. One last walk across, and they got to be the very first to sign their names alongside the fresh SpaceX logo. With that, it was time for ingress into the Crew Dragon Freedom. Despite the stormy skies threatening the coast of Florida at the time, the weather around the launch site itself had surprisingly remained okay. At the 45-minute mark, the crew access arm retracted and propellant loading was underway. SpaceX had prepared beautifully for this because, amazingly, with the new setup here, the final count was on. Yes, indeed. A brilliant liftoff from SLC-40 for the first time with humans on board. As always, our friend Greg Scott was right there to capture the incredible moment, freezing these scenes in time. You are a master at this, my friend. Do make sure you have Greg followed there, because there is a load more excitement from the week. Moments later, stage separation occurred, and the more gentle push of that single Merlin vacuum engine took over, a push that would gradually grow in acceleration as the stage burned through its propellant. Meanwhile, Booster 1085 was making its way back home. Indeed, this was an always exciting return-to-launch site mission, heading down to Landing Zone 1. You might notice this was quite a clean booster compared to many, and that is because it was only its second flight. A gorgeous touchdown there. Now, sadly, this entire stream was only broadcast at 720p. Given how historic this one was, that was a little disappointing. But regardless, Crew Dragon Freedom smoothly separated from the second stage and began its journey to the International Space Station. We were treated to some jaw-dropping views from the second stage cameras. Unfortunately, the next day, SpaceX announced that the second stage experienced an off-nominal deorbit burn. It ended up landing safely in the ocean, but was outside the target zone. This is unusual, and of course, this was also the second Falcon 9 upper stage anomaly this year. Back in July, we had that bizarre leak that resulted in not being able to get that batch of Starlink satellites into their proper orbit. Anyway, SpaceX mentioned a temporary grounding of all Falcon 9 missions while they investigated this. You can see that the second stage was supposed to fall somewhere here in the Pacific, eastwards of New Zealand. Jonathan McDowell, who keeps track of these things very closely, predicted that the anomaly may have been an underburn of the engine, meaning the stage would travel further up towards the equator. Anyway, getting back to the Dragon, on Sunday, they arrived at the International Space Station, and it smoothly docked as expected. Haig and Gorbanov now join Expedition 72, and finally, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams welcome their new crew, officially reforming the crew of 4 on this Crew 9 mission. For a short time, the number of crew members aboard the space station will sit at 11 until Crew 8 members return to Earth this month. The Crew 9 team will remain up here until mission end in about 6 months. That is a rather long 8-day mission for Butch and Suni, but these two amazing humans have settled in for that long haul. In that time, their crew will be working on over 200 science experiments, and Dragon missions to date have carried a total of over 1,000 experiments to space, which is an awesome stat. While we're talking about the topic of Dragon, SpaceX released some absolutely breathtaking views from the Polaris mission. SpaceX recently released a rare video in stunning 4K resolution on their YouTube channel, capturing the Polaris Dawn mission. The footage showcases Dragon orbiting the Earth 75 times over the course of its 5-day mission. Watching these scenes in high speed is mesmerizing as Dragon's fine attitude control makes precise adjustments while the Earth's blue surface rotates below, interspersed with the sun appearing and disappearing from view. It's a perspective that very few people have experienced, yet it strongly evokes the human desire to explore and understand the universe. One particular scene stood out, a dark pass over a brightly lit city, which seemed to be Los Angeles, while Dragon's thrusters fired to adjust its orbit for one of the mission phases. The video highlighted not only the technical prowess required for such missions, but also the inspiring visual of seeing our planet from space. The experience shared by the Polaris Dawn team is a glimpse into the future of space exploration, as SpaceX continues to push the boundaries of commercial space travel. As space becomes more accessible, one can imagine a time when ordinary people might be able to take a similar journey, floating around the Earth, witnessing its curvature and marveling at the deep blue oceans and swirling white clouds. The video also featured views of the Strait of Gibraltar and the Gulf of California, with stunning clarity. It's clear that this is more than just another milestone for SpaceX. This, along with the inspiration for a mission, is a precursor of what's to come in the commercial space industry. The bright surface of Earth hid the stars initially, but as darkness fell, the stars emerged in full clarity, offering a magnificent view of space. United Launch Alliance, ULA, also had a big week as they geared up for their second and final certification flight of Vulcan. With Dream Chaser by Sierra Space experiencing delays, ULA had to launch this flight without its intended customer payload. Instead, they included a non-deployable inert payload along with a few experiments to gather performance data. After a successful wet dress rehearsal, Vulcan was all set for launch. However, on launch day, a technical issue halted the countdown at T1:51. Fortunately, they resolved the problem, and Vulcan took to the skies in a glorious daylight launch. Despite a minor mishap with one of the solid rocket boosters, the mission continued flawlessly, with the Centaur's second stage igniting to push the vehicle into a hyperbolic orbit around the Sun. In addition to these exciting developments, new images from the James Webb Space Telescope were released. One striking image showed ARP 107, a pair of galaxies that collided hundreds of millions of years ago, sparking a chain reaction of star births. Another image, from the CERS survey, featured the Goods S field, showcasing a collection of galaxies across various stages of evolution. One of these, named Galaxy GS NDG 9422, may be undergoing a never-before-seen phase of galactic evolution, with its interstellar medium glowing at an astonishing 80,000 degrees Celsius. These findings not only support our current understanding of cosmology, but also potentially explain previously unaccounted stellar mass. It's an exciting time in space exploration, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more space-related content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.